Welcome students, I'm Dr. Seema Desai Fernandez from St. Xavier's College, Mapsa, Goa. This program is for the Bachelor of Science SYVSC students, subject Botany Semester 4, course code BOC 104, course title Plant Physiology. Title of the unit Translocation in Phloem, module name Phloem Unloading-Sosic Relationship. Outline of the module, Phloem Unloading-Sosic Relationship, Learning Outcomes, explains the Phloem Unloading-Sosic Relationship. Introduction. Source-sink relationship is a process involved in translocation of photosynthetic products in plants. Translocation is the movement or transport of assimilates. Assimilates are the product of photosynthesis from source. Example of source is leaf to sink, example roots within a plant. Though glucose is prepared in photosynthesis, it is converted into sucrose. So mainly sucrose is transported in the plants. Before the translocation of sugars could proceed, the soluble sugars must be transferred from mesophyll cells to sieve tube elements of the leaves. There are three parts in translocation. Part 1. Phloem loading. What is phloem loading? The transfer of sugars, that is photosynthate, from mesophyll cells to phloem sieve tube elements in the leaf is called as phloem loading. It is apoplast pathway and active process. How does phloem transport food? The food, that is sugar, made in leaves is loaded into the phloem sieve tubes of phloem tissue by using the energy derived from ATP. As a result, the osmotic pressure in the tissue increases, causing the water to move into it. This process is helpful in moving the food materials according to the needs of the plant. Part 2 is mass flow. What is mass flow? Assimilates are flowing from the source of higher turgor pressure to sink having low turgor pressure down the pressure gradient is mass flow. Part 3 is related to the phloem unloading. Phloem unloading is the passive process because it does not require any energy. Let us go into the phloem unloading. What is phloem unloading? The transfer of sugars, that is photosynthate, from sieve tube elements to the receiver cells of consumption end, that is sink organs, is called as phloem unloading. It occurs in the consumption end or sink organs such as developing roots, tubers, reproductive structures, etc. What is the difference between a source and a sink in a plant? Source is the part of a plant where substances are produced. Example, leaves for sucrose, amino acids. Sink refers to the part of the plant where the substrate can be stored. Example, roots or stem, fruit or storage organs for starch. Sugars move from the sieve tubes to receiver cell in the sink involving following steps. This is the diagram which shows phloem unloading process. The first step shows sieve element unloading, that is at the area of the sink where the sugar is unloaded and it is imported from the sieve tube elements to the sink cells. And the distance of transporting the sugar from sieve tube element to the sink is very short. So it is also called as post-sieve element transport. The third one is storage and metabolism. Once the sugar is transported into the sink cell, it is stored or metabolized in the cells of the sink. What causes unloading of sucrose at sink cell? At the sources, usually the leaves, sugar molecules are moved into the sieve tube elements. This is the diagram which shows that the sucrose which is produced in the leaf is translocated into the sieve tube elements, and because of the mass flow, the sugar is transported down the concentration gradient near the area of the sink. Because sucrose concentration in the sink cell is low than in the phloem sieve tube elements, so loading at the sink of the phloem tube occurs by either diffusion or active process of the sucrose molecules from a higher concentration area to the lower concentration area. Let us see the phloem unloading step-by-step explanation. What happened here is, in the first step of the phloem loading, in the upper part of the leaf where sucrose is made in the leaf, and then it gets transported from source to the sieve tube elements of the phloem. From there, the sucrose travels along the sieve tube cells. The assimilates flow from the source of higher turgor pressure to the sink area with low turgor pressure down the pressure gradient. Once the sucrose reach the sink area, unloading of assimilates from phloem takes place to the other sink cells. Phloem unloading is a passive process because energy is not required. What happens here is, sink uses sucrose for various purposes. Therefore, sink has low sugar concentration gradient. So it will allow to diffuse phloem sucrose from phloem sieve tube elements from higher sugar concentration to low sugar concentration into the sink. Once sucrose enters into the sink cell, it will quickly passes sucrose on to other cells because the other cells also require sucrose. Sink actually passes the sucrose on to other cells, or it will convert inside the sink cell to other forms. Example, glucose. The whole point here is to maintain the concentration gradient differences between the sink cell and the phloem sieve tube elements to keep bringing in the sucrose. Otherwise, it will quickly reach to the equilibrium and there won't be enough sucrose whenever the plant is required. The loss of the assimilates from sieve tube element increases the water potential of the sieve tube elements, and therefore there is high water potential in sieve tube element than the sink cells. So, water moves out into the sink cell or the adjacent cell from higher water potential to the lower water potential area by osmosis, or it enters into the xylem transpiration stream, which also contributes in the movement of water to the plants. So often, once the sugar or sucrose moves, the water follows. Let us see the summary step-by-step explanation. Step 1 explains about the phloem unloading of the sucrose. Second, it shows the mass flow. Because of the mass flow, assimilates flow down the concentration gradient where there is higher turgor pressure at the source and low turgor pressure at the sink. Step 3 explains about the phloem unloading, which is a passive process, and from the sieve tube element, the sucrose diffuses from sieve tube element into the sink. Summary. Source example leaf is the area where the Phloem loading occurs, which is an active process by apoplast pathway. Then it go into the mass flow because of turgor pressure, where assimilates move to lower concentration gradient. Then phloem unloading takes place where the phloem sucrose diffuses from the phloem into the zinc cells. And then it moves to other cells around it or gets converted to other forms, that is glucose to maintain the concentration gradient or to maintain the concentration difference. Because of the loss of the assimilates of sieve tube element, water potential increases, and by osmosis, the water moves to low water potential area, that is zinc following the sugar or water will move into the adjacent cells in the xylem's transpiration stream, moving the water into the plant. These are the references. Thank you.